Hello teacher, in this opportunity we have an interview about the topic of pollution of groundwater, and for this we have an expert with this topic. She is the Erika Tenorio engineer, and she is an environmental engineer and has a master on groundwater quality from the University of Illinois. Hello teacher.
Hello, good night.
Uh, for this interview, I go to with my partner. El, for this, we have some question for you, and the first question is, what is groundwater and how it originates?
Okay, so groundwater is water that has infiltrated into the soil and has moved down into a material with certain porosity that has allowed it to be within the soil. So it takes millions of years or thousands of years for some groundwater to get to where it is.
Okay, thank you. And the next question to continue by my partner Carolina Herrera.
Hi teacher, I'm engineer. The second question is, what is the importance of groundwater for human beings?
Okay, so we have many sources of water in the world. We know that most of our water is salt water from the oceans. And then of the fresh water that we have, most of it is frozen, but then about 30% of our water is groundwater. So in many parts of the world, that groundwater is what sustains production, what sustains agriculture. So for many countries, having groundwater is an opportunity for development. And also for many communities around the world, where there are no streams near or there are no lakes, populations need to dig wells to get the water that they need for drinking and for cooking and for everyday needs. So without groundwater, we would have a major problem in the world. Many communities would have to migrate if they run out of groundwater, or if their groundwater becomes polluted. Because many communities and many parts of the world depend mostly on groundwater to sustain all the living conditions.
The other question is, what are the main sources of pollution of groundwater?
So groundwater can be affected if certain things come in contact with it. The pollutants vary between areas of the world. One of the most important sources of pollution, particularly if the water is not too deep, is fecal matter that can pollute the groundwater. That could later be drank by some communities. Nutrients are also a problem. Fertilizers that can be applied to the soil for production, or even pesticides. When rain comes down and the water infiltrates, those nutrients and those pesticides can also come into the groundwater and affect the whole or an entire aquifer. The magnitude of the pollution depends on many things. Depends on the source of pollution that you are adding to the soil and that can infiltrate. But also every aquifer is different. So some aquifers are more vulnerable than others, depending on the type of soil or the geologic material that they are formed of. In some, water can infiltrate easily. In some other types of aquifer, the water takes longer to infiltrate. So if you have an aquifer that has porous material where the water infiltrates quickly, that means that also the pollutants can infiltrate quickly, and that makes it more vulnerable to obtain pollution. It's also important to know that you could have a lot of groundwater that's polluted. It becomes an issue when you have a community that is using that for drinking purposes. That pollution can come from human activities, but also there are parts of the world where pollution in the water caused by natural minerals like arsenic could cause serious problems or even deaths in people if it's not detected on time and people consume water with high levels of arsenic. Then you can have a serious problem for communities.
The other question is, how does groundwater pollution affect the environment?
Well, like I said, it depends on the populations that are using that groundwater. Since the groundwater is underneath the soil, it usually, groundwater pollution is not related to issues with any other species or ecosystems. However, if that groundwater comes in contact with surface water, then an entire surface water ecosystem can be affected. Like if you have groundwater that feeds into a river or feeds into a lake and that water is polluted, then you can affect an entire ecosystem, and that could lead to death of fishes or other species. But our main interest is how it relates to the health of the communities or human beings particularly.
And the final question is, how can we know if groundwater can be used for human consumption?
So there are a list of things that you can check. Usually you could take a sample of the water and take it to a lab. And then first you would need to understand what goes around that area and identify things that could pollute the water. So if there's an industry, if there's a gas station, if there's a community, then you would need to find clues that would tell you what to look for in your water. Once you know or you have an idea of what to look for in your water, then you complete a set of analysis. Each analysis has an expected result and a maximum limit. So if your water has concentrations of certain pollutants above that limit, that means that water is not safe for human consumption. So you can test the water, take it to a lab, analyze the results, and then make a decision whether you could need some additional treatment for your water or you need to find another source of water so that your health is not compromised.
Engineer, thank you very much for all of these interviews, to learn more about this interesting topic. I think that the importance to know how many human activities contribute of the contamination of groundwater, because many countries or many places depend this water for satisfy the needs.